Okay, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks again for being here. I'll be looking at the chat as we go, so you will be on mute. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. You have come to Tropical Fruit Tuesday, right fruit tree, wrong place. So we're going to talk about some of the trees you might want to pick that don't have a lot of problems. We're going to talk about the right place to put them, and we're going to talk about the wrong place. So let's get started. Okay, I do work for University of Florida IFAS Extension in Miami-Dade County. University of Florida has an extension office in all 67 counties. So there you see them in the gray, and then in the blue triangle, that's where we have some research and education centers. We do have one right next to our office here, right down the road, called the Tropical Research Education Center. And there we have a tropical fruit specialist, a tropical fruit entomologist, plant pathologist, tropical fruit plant breeder. So we have all these great people that can help me when I have questions. And when you have questions and I don't know the answer, I can go to them. So you have come across Tropical Fruit Tuesday, right fruit tree, wrong place. Next month, we're going to do one that I think will be popular called growing fruit trees in containers. I always get a lot of questions about that. Spoiler alert, it's really hard to do, so I don't recommend it. But we'll drag that out for 45 minutes next month. Then I think I'm going to do air layering in March. It depends because the Fruit and Spice Park is doing something similar around that time. So we'll check on that. All the Tropical Fruit Tuesdays are on YouTube, so you can find them there. These are the last, the 20 individual Tropical Fruit Tuesdays. So you see there's pruning, planting, fertilizer, Tropical Fruit CSI, IPM, post-production, different types of propagation, and then jackfruit, carambola, sapotacea, mangoes, avocados. The list goes on and on, so you can find those there. So I like to start with where can you get information. Great place is called Ask IFAS, and I'm going to show you a little bit about that as we go. So you search Ask IFAS, used to be called EDIS, and you'll come across something that looks like this. It says, what can we help you with? You type in the word jackfruit, and you'll get a couple of publications on jackfruit. One of them is called Growing Jackfruit in the Home Landscape, and that will have all kinds of information, planting, propagation, when to fertilize, how much to fertilize, all that. So we have that on all the major crops. If you can't find it there, you might want to try other universities. So you can search another topic with space edu, and you should find it. YouTube is a good place. I told you all the Tropical Fruit Tuesdays are there. So if you go to YouTube and put in the search bar Tropical Fruit Tuesdays, no one's stolen that name yet, so you'll find them all there, all 20. Of course, lots of other good information there. The best part is that you see it, so it's much easier to pick up and to learn. Master Gardeners, another great place to get information. I was just spending some time with some really nice master gardeners today. We have classes here on master gardening, and you can take it, I think it's about 8 to 10 weeks. And then at the end, you put in some volunteer time and you become a master gardener. Plant clubs or societies, there's a lot of those. And there's some on rare fruit, there's some on orchids, there's some on native plants. So you can join those. They usually have a speaker once a month, and you can learn from the speaker, you can learn from people in the class or the clubs. So it's worth your while if you have a topic that you want to learn more about. Social media, of course, a good place to get information. I spent time with my daughter recently, and she was showing me a lot of things that she learned on TikTok. Number one place to get information is your own garden. So if you can see it with your own eyes, you know it's true. So pay attention to your garden or your grove and really That's a great place to get information. And as always, beware of the source of your information. You don't know just because you Google it that it's the best information. Sometimes they just pick the most popular thing and not the thing that is actually correct. That's why Ask IFAS is so good, because that's peer reviewed. You can't just put it in there. You have to have it looked at by many different experts. So, right plant, right place, right fruit tree, wrong place. This comes from the 9 Florida-friendly landscape principles, and they're listed here. The most important one is that first one, the right plant in the right place. Then you have water efficiently, fertilize appropriately. These two are very important. Use mulch, try to attract wildlife, manage your yard pests responsibly, recycle yard waste, reduce stormwater, protect the waterfront. So lots of good information there. And really the right plant, right place is what you're looking for. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Here's somewhere close to my house. You can see they put probably the wrong plant in the wrong place. That's a foxtail palm, and it's not the easiest thing to grow. You can grow it with a little bit of input, but it's certainly put in the wrong place there. You see it going up, and there was a whole line of them, and they all kind of died slowly because they are not easy to grow. You see the one that made it is finally getting up into the wires. Then you see on the right, in between the foxtail and the street, they planted Spanish stoppers, which are the right plant in the right place because they kind of go up. So that would fill that little area and it wouldn't get into the power lines. But of course, they didn't water them and they weed whacked them. So a lot of them are dying. So right plant, right place, but wrong treatment. But we're going to talk about the right fruit tree, which if you have the right fruit tree, it's going to be disease-free when you get it, and disease tolerant, and it's going to have healthy roots. It's going to have healthy leaves, so a good, healthy plant. You need to take it out of the pot and look at the roots to make sure they're not all wrapped around. Good flavor, of course, that's very important with your fruit trees. And you want them to be pest-free. And you want some of them that a fruit tree that doesn't get a lot of disease or pests. We know that lychee in the last couple of years has been hit by the lychee Aranos mite. So that might have been something that before you could pick, but now you might want to not think about it because of the lychee Aranos mite problems. And then you want a tree that's not too vigorous, because you remember you want a tree that's where you can get the fruit easily, and you don't have to constantly heavily prune it to keep it to the size that would make it manageable. So the right fruit tree, the right place would be putting that fruit tree at the correct level, putting a fruit tree where the soil moisture is proper, meaning the soil level or the water table is not too high. Towards the end, I'll show you right fruit trees in the wrong place where they put fruit trees that were getting their roots in the water, in the water table, and that caused disease. Salinity. We do have problems with salt, especially if you're growing in the Keys. If you're growing by Biscayne Bay, this can be trouble. So you want to have the right salinity level, which is usually very low. You want the tree in full sun. This is very important. You want space for the roots, so you don't want to put it in a little small area. And you want the proper temperature or the zone. So you want something that can grow according to the temperatures that you're going to get. So right fruit tree in the wrong place. What's the wrong place? Well, if you put it too deep, you see a mango there on the left that was planted too deep. You see I dug down looking for the roots. I couldn't find them at all. And that's probably good 5 inches. So that's too deep. You don't want it in an area that's too wet, that's in a low-lying area. If you are in a low-lying area, you want to build up a berm and plant into that. You don't want an area that's too salty or too shaded. That's important. And you can create areas that are too shaded simply by planting your trees too close together. That's one way you can have a shaded area. You need soil space, so you need a big area for your roots to grow. You don't want to plant it, in a little area that's got sidewalks all around it, and you don't want it to be too cold. So if we start taking our mangoes up above Lake Okeechobee, it's going to start to get pretty cold there, and it might be harder to grow, especially when we get these fronts that we just had, like these cold fronts that we just recently had. Okay, so ripe fruit tree, we want to put it with the green side up. Let's go with that. We want the ripe fruit tree to be properly propagated. So what does that mean? That means when we have fruit trees and we have these names for the fruit trees, like we have mango and we have the Cary mango, the Kit mango, the Kent mango, the Angie mango, the Fairchild mango. These are cultivars. And we can't keep those cultivars unless we unless we propagate the fruit tree asexually. So we take a piece of the mother plant that is a Cary mango and we make it grow, and then the bottom, the seedling, or not the seedling, but what we grow from that piece is a Cary mango. So we would take a piece of the Cary and we would put it onto another mango, a seedling, and then the top would be the Cary and the bottom would just be good seedling roots. So they have to be properly propagated, usually asexual. For tropical fruit, it's usually going to be grafting. You can do air layering on lychee, longan, guava, some of the others, and cuttings on dragon fruit and passion fruit. But for the most part, you're going to graft. But what all those have in common is you're taking a piece of the mother plant and making it grow so it's a clone. So not only is it a clone, it's exactly what you want, but it'll produce faster because it's mature. So if you grow something from a seed, the mother was, let's say, a Cary mango, but the whatever pollinated was a different type of mango. So if you grow that seed out, it's not a Cary, it's something else. Also, that seed will take many years to produce fruit. So that's another reason you would do something asexually. So here's a graft on the left, and here's a seedling on the right. The graft, this top part, is the Cary. So we wrap that together, we make them grow together. The top is a Cary, the top is already sexually mature. This seedling is a mango seedling, but we don't know exactly what it is. And, it's a mango, we know that, but we don't know what type it's going to be. And it's not going to be a Cary, it's going to be a Cary mixed with whatever pollinated it. So it could be really good, it could be really bad. We don't know. It could be a poor producer. And also it's going to take many years to produce. Here's a tree on the left that's going to take many years to produce. And here's a young mango on the right that's already flowering, just a few years old. So if you grow it from seed, it's not the same as the parent. That's good for us, not good for fruit trees in most cases, because you want that exact same cultivar. So very good for the forest because you want that diversity, but for fruit trees, if you like Cary mango, you want that Cary mango, you've got to grow it as a graft asexually. Okay, so not good for fruit trees, because if you want this Angie and all these Angies are grafted down here, if you want that Angie and they all come from the Angie tree, you have to do it asexually. So that is the right fruit tree. So some of the right fruit trees, I'll just talk about a few fruit trees, species that are a little easier to grow, that don't have a lot of big problems. So I'll skip something like a lychee that has the lychee mite. I'll skip avocado that has laurel wilt, but I'll tell you about mango. Just a few cultivars. Fairchild comes from the Fairchild Curator Choice Program. It's very disease tolerant, great flavor, ready June to July. Mine is fruiting. I mean, not fruiting, mine is flowering here at work. Malacca, good commercial potential, good producer, good size, excellent flavor. Only true Indian mango that works in the tropics. A lot of the Indian mangoes like Alfonso doesn't grow well here because of our humidity. Rosy Gold, this one's very early, another good flavor, very smooth, no fiber. All these have no fiber. And it can set very heavily. It can set multiple crops. Angie, this one has good commercial potential, great flavor, disease tolerant. Tree is naturally small. I have a tree here and I haven't pruned it for a couple years and it's just stayed the same size and still produced. So mangoes is a good one. Banana, pretty easy. It likes water and fertilizer. There's many, many types. A stalk will die after it fruits. It propagates by suckers. It can be disease prone a little bit. The Fia types are pretty good, like Sweetheart, Mona Lisa. So you can grow those. Goldfinger is another one of the Fia types. So you don't want a big clump like this. Here we see the banana man, Anthony Rodriguez. He took a clump like one on the left and made it to like we see on the right. So you have the big one, the medium one, and the small one. When that big one flowers and fruits, you get rid of it, chop it up. Then the medium one will become the big one. You let another small one come up. So as soon as he did this, this big one flowered immediately and fruited. And that was the first time we had gotten actual full-size fruit from our bananas here. Because they were in a clump, they just kept putting out these little tiny bananas. So here's what he took down, and then he just chopped it all up with a machete. Excellent work, and I really appreciated it. So they flower, and then they put out fruit, the big bunch, and then you know when to pick it when you see one or two of them ripening. Then the whole stalk will be mature. So jackfruit, another one with very little problems. They do have male and female flowers on the same tree. Here's a male flower, here's a female. So when they're young, they flower only males, and you're gonna wanna, what happens is the males turn black like that, and you might think you had a fruit and it got fungus, but really the tree is just too young to fruit. So here's a female that's getting bigger because it was pollinated. Carambola, another one, produces very heavily. We have two trees here. They almost always have fruit on them, and no matter how many fruit people take home, there's still fruit on those trees. So very nice, very little problems. They need a little protection from the wind, and they could use some minor elements like iron and the foliar spray of minor elements. So sapodilla is another one that has very little problems. And this, what I'm showing you here, is the kind of information that you'd find in Ask IFAS. So if you went to Ask IFAS and put in sapodilla, you would find this type of information on the publication that says growing sapodilla in the home landscape. So it will tell you the origin, it will tell you the size, relatives. So you have canistel, star apple, green sapote, May sapote is in there. Then in the back, you typically have these charts, which are very good. It tells you when to fertilize, the macros, NPK, when to use the micros and iron. The months are on the top. The colors show you when to do it, when to irrigate, when to do insect control. These get moths that will eat the flowers, so that you want to look for those when they're flowering. Disease, generally not a problem. When to prune, almost always it's going to be after harvest. When to do frost protection and when to harvest. So our pruning would come in here in about June or July. So you'll find these in Ask IFAS. So very good information there. So right fruit tree, wrong place. Right place, full sun. Trees need sun. The fruit trees need sun to get energy to make the flowers to produce the fruit. So here's a landscape. Here's a house. Now the north is this side down here. So the north side is going to be shady. Let's say this was a two-story house. This would be very, very shady here. So right fruit tree would be a nice sapodilla. If we put it in here, not only would it be too tight close to the house, but it would be in the shade, so it wouldn't get sun. So right fruit tree in the wrong place. So over here, we have a big area that's getting full sun. So if we put a sapodilla there, we have the right fruit tree in the right place because it's getting lots of sun. So here again, shaded. This would be a good place to put a fruit tree if the neighbor didn't have anything here. Because remember, the north side is going to constantly stay shaded, especially close to something tall, because the sun is going to go from east to west, tilting to the south. So the north stays shady, north side, and in the winter, it's even shadier. So here's a nice lychee grove full of fruit 2 years ago. And you can see the area that is next to the road is getting lots of sunlight. So this is full sun, full of fruit. So here's the same grove in the interior, and the trees are actually shading each other out. So we have a relatively good fruit tree, and it's in the wrong place because they're too close together. Now, one solution would be to have kept these trees pruned, so then the sunlight can get in there. That would be a solution. So that would be a way around it. You see there's very little fruit up top, but inside almost no fruit. And you see here where we had that full sun, lots and lots of fruit. So you don't want your trees too close. Here's some young mangoes that I planted a few years ago, and not lots of space. So here they are when they're older. They're still getting lots of full sun. This is a Fairchild. This is a cactus. This is a coxhaw back here. So here they are side by side. So right fruit tree, here's a nice mango. And here's another mango. Here's another mango. So, and here's another, I think, stump. So the right fruit tree, the mango, in the wrong place, because this is a commercial grower right next to a commercial nursery. Now, if you know about nurseries, they have things in containers, so they have to constantly get water. So this constant water is getting on the roots of these mangoes, and it's killing the trees. It's just too much water. The roots can't breathe. So the trees die back almost completely like this one, or all the way like this one, or almost completely like this one. Here we see where the end of the nursery is, where they're not getting water all day. The mangoes are fine. So right fruit tree, wrong place. So we don't want it too wet, and we don't want it too dry. Here's a guava planting. It's on a little rock berm, and the owners of this guava farm actually came to me and said the guavas were dying from snails. So I went out to take a look, and sure enough, on the dead guavas, you found all these snails. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So all these snails, so they did appear to be killing the trees, but these particular snails only eat the lichen on the trees. They don't get into the sap, and they wouldn't kill it. So what actually was killing the trees was they had it on a berm, remember? So this is very well draining soil, and they had a dripper. They had an emitter, and these were new plantings. The emitter was just going straight down. The roots were over here. The roots were not getting enough water, and then they were dying. So right fruit tree, wrong place, because it wasn't close enough to the water supply. So here is a very good tree. the meme, and it's a bright fruit tree, but it's in the wrong place, because this particular place, the water level, where the roots are, is very high. So the roots are actually sitting in the water. And when you have roots sitting in water, there's different diseases that can pop up, like Phytophthora in avocados. And for meme, it's pythium root rot. So this is suffering from pythium root rot. It almost looks like minor element deficiency, but really what that is the pythium root rot is causing that. And then also it looks like there's some thrip damage here as well. So here is an avocado with the same problem. The water level is very high, so it has this Phytophthora root rot. Phytophthora is in the soil, and it gets activated by having water there. So it's always there, and then when you have that water, it just gets up into the tree and does damage. So right fruit tree, wrong place. So if we're growing avocados in an area where the water level is very high, and we know that, we have to know that avocados do not like having their feet wet. So we would have to plant them on berms if we really want to plant in that area. So here is the right plant in the right place. This is kind of stretching it, calling it a fruit tree, but this does have edible fruit. This is a cocoa plum. And we talked a little bit about salinity, and there's not a lot of fruit trees you can grow close to the ocean. But this is one that's really makes a great hedge, and it's very beautiful. And it does have edible fruit. I'm not going to say the fruit's amazing, but it's not bad. But it can grow right by the water. This is at Biscayne National Park, very close to the ocean. So in this case, we have the right plant in the right place. But if we were to take a avocado or a mango or a carambola or a meme and plant it in the same spot, we have the right fruit tree, but in the wrong place, because that salt water would just eat it up. So here's another one very similar, a tree, the sea grape, that has another edible fruit, which makes a good jam. And fruit that makes a good jam is code for it doesn't taste that good, so you have to have a lot of sugar to it to make it taste better. But it's the right plant in the right place. Again, this is in Flamingo, right next at the tip of mainland Florida, and this area would not be good for most fruit trees. So it would be the right fruit tree in the wrong place. So we don't want it too cold. This is in Washington, D.C. I visited there and went to the National Botanic Garden. And inside, they had a greenhouse. Inside, it was getting protected, but they had a couple mangoes there. So because of the cold, they had to be inside. And because they're inside, they're not going to get that much sunlight, and they're definitely not going to get pollinated. So you have the right tree in the wrong place because it's way up north. So we don't want it too cold. This was last year. We got a pretty decent cold front, and lo and behold, we had a iguana in the grove out back, which I didn't know we really had many back there, but the cold zapped it. So we don't want to be in an area that's too cold. And here we have a soursop to the right, and soursops are really your indicator plant to tell you how cold it got, because they really will show you when there's cold damage, or when there's been a, even when you get into the upper 30s, lower 40s, the soursop or guanabana will show damage. So here's cold damage from there. The cold that we got around Christmas, which was lower 40s, that one actually defoliated the guanabana that we have here, the soursop. It totally defoliated it because of the cold. So you want, and so something like a breadfruit would be the right tree, but in the wrong place if it's too far north, because breadfruit are even more cold sensitive than guanabanas, also called soursop. So we don't want it too deep. Right fruit tree in the wrong place would be too deep. This is a mango that's at the right level because you move away that little bit of mulch and you see the flare roots. So it's really at a good level. So we want that good depth. Here's one that was in a container too long in a 3-gallon pot. So you see the roots are wrapped around, and then you see the soil level was up here. So this tree is actually dead. You can also see where it was grafted here. So that was good that it was grafted, but not good that it was planted so deep, and not good that it was in a 3-gallon pot so long. So here again, we see that deep, deep, deep mango. So the right fruit tree in the wrong place because it's just too deep. So the right fruit tree is going to be disease-free for the most part, or disease tolerant. It's going to have very healthy roots. So this one, not healthy roots. The roots themselves are not bad, but the fact that they're wrapping around is not ideal. So you want healthy leaves. So when you purchase your plant, you want to look at it, you want to make sure that the leaves are very green and they're not distorted, they're not showing signs of deficiencies. You want to take that tree out of the pot, take a look at the roots, make sure they're young and pushing out and not wrapped around. You want a fruit tree that has very good flavor, obviously. And you do that by asexually propagating, so you know the flavor you're going to get. You don't just plant a seed, because remember also from a seed, it's going to take many years to produce fruit because it has to go through all the stages of maturity. You want one that's pest-free or at least pest tolerant. So if it gets pests, they're not going to do too much damage. And you want a tree that's not too vigorous. Those mangoes that I talked about, the Fairchild, the Malacca, the Rosy Gold, and the Angie are all not too vigorous. I told you I haven't pruned the Angie in a couple of years and it's still a good size. And the Fairchild, I've only pruned it once or twice. So the wrong place would be too deep, in an area that's too wet, in an area that's too salty, in an area that's too shaded, compacted soil space. So like in between a house and a driveway, that would be not enough space for the roots. Or it's in an area that's going to get too cold, because you can sneak and try to plant and try to grow something that can tolerate normal temperatures, but when a real cold front comes around, it's going to be problems. Okay, Greg says, what about figs in South Florida, right or wrong place? Figs can grow in South Florida. They're not too easy to grow, but they have them. They have them at Fruit and Spice Bar. Some people grow them. So they're doable. They would like it to be a little further north, but they're doable here. So if you want to do some figs, give it a shot. Cherie says another wrong place is too close to a building. That's a great point. Jorge gives a lot of help in the chat, and so I want to thank him. And he says he knows a grower that's having trouble with the very good varieties of figs. So could be insects. I know they do get some insect trouble. So the right place, correct level, good soil moisture, not near the ocean, full sun, space for the roots, not too close to a building, and the proper temperature. So thank you guys. Our next Tropical Fruit Tuesday will be fruit in containers and air layering probably after that. I really want to ask if you will take a quick survey. I'm putting a link to the survey in the chat. You can click on that, or you can open your phone to your camera and scan this QR code. It's probably 5 questions. It's super quick. It'll really help me to answer the survey. So if you would use your phone, open it up to your camera, get the link, You can do it on your phone, or you can use the link in the chat, and you can click on that. And that will help me a lot. Thank you guys for coming. Really appreciate it. And I will see you on Valentine's Day for growing fruit in containers. So I'm gonna again put the link in the chat. And thank you guys. I see you saying thank you down there in the chat. Thank you so much. So if you could just take that quick survey, that would really help me out. Okay, guys, I'm going to let you go. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time. And thank you so much for your time.